Hello, everybody. Gonna do a quick stream today. Something I was a bit triggered by, and I just wanted to share my thoughts on it and see what you guys thought. Let me just go ahead and do a quick audio check. I am gonna be skiing tomorrow, so just want to make sure we do this and wrap it up real quick. I don't hear myself though. Oh, that's not good. Is the audio off? Hello? 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 Okay. Okay, I think it's good. Let me know if it's not loud enough, and I'll try to adjust the volume a bit more. But, okay, yeah. So, the latest controversy has been, about Eileen Gu, and I think this is sort of relevant to, what it's really relevant, particularly to me because I am Asian American, but I think you will understand a lot about Asian culture, and my experiences living in Asia and America, um, and the duality of your identities, as an Asian American out here. So I just wanted to talk about this. It is sort of a controversial issue, but I mean, I wanna steer clear of, what I particularly think about Eileen Gu because that's sort of distracts from the topic itself. But what it means to be Asian American and is Eileen Gu the ideal example of how we can define our identity? What's up? Oh, hey, come back to the OC. Yeah, it is my home. You'll see. A little spoiler. It is my home. So, they ask Eileen how she defines being Chinese American or Asian American, because it could be Korean American or wherever. And she said, American when I'm in the US and Chinese when I'm in China. So, this is the way she defines being Asian American. Is just conveniently, I can drop off the American when it's convenient for me, and I'm gonna be Chinese in China, I'm gonna be Korean in Korea, Thai in Thailand, because it obviously has its benefits of being that country's national. So hey, I'm gonna just drop the American when it's convenient for me, and I could be, I'm just gonna drop the Asian part when I'm in America and get all the benefits of the education, the freedoms, and the money. And for Eileen, it seems it's possible. It seems that China's made an exception with her because China generally doesn't allow dual citizenship, but there is no record of her dropping her American citizenship. So, for her, it's possible. She's getting the best of both worlds. Hey, you know what? If you can do it, more power to her. If it's a fault of anybody, it's a fault of the regulators that allowed it. I'm not gonna go any further into it. Hey, she's only an 18-year-old girl, and you got a ton of money available. I mean, I don't know what her personal reasons for doing what she did was, but even just the monetary benefit, I can't blame an 18-year-old for, just being Asian, being Chinese when she's in China, get that marketing money, and then, take advantage of all of the American education, the benefits she got, support from America. So that's her definition. But is this really the reality? Is this really gonna fly? You know? Um, and well, actually, before I sort of spoiled it, before I go into what I think being Asian American is about and how you're going to be treated as an Asian American in Asia, let me go ahead and read some comments. I need an alternate version of this with a title, How Korean is Ethan? Well, you'll see. You'll see. Who's Eileen? She's the really controversial skier. She was born in America, grew up there, and like it seems she switched her nationality and now she's representing China. And I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but yeah. Um, I don't think I look Thai when I'm in Thailand. You gotta go back to our condos in Thailand, Ethan. She's beautiful. What is Eileen Jobs? Eileen Gu. Well, it's irrelevant who Eileen is actually to this discussion. But you can read up on her. She's this, skier that decided, hey, I'm gonna represent China, even though she pretty much, was born and grew up in America. I think she's like, well, she's half Chinese, half I don't know what her other nationality is. To be quite honest with you, I don't really care. Um, but she's raising a lot of controversy because people are saying she's betraying America. Um, but she's like, hey, you know what? When asked questions about is she American or Chinese, she conveniently took the Chinese in China and American in America kind of approach. And when people call her, like traitor, etc., she'll just say, "Hey, cry about it." Um, but let me just go on ahead and tell you what I think being Asian American is about, and this will answer how Korean am I. So, as a Korean American, Asian American, I define myself, as you can see, as an American. Sometimes this is confusing because I know Americans were not quite particularly good at English because English is from England and we're American. But when you say Asian American, the Asian is actually the adjective, something that sort of describes the American part, but the noun itself is American, you know? So it ends up being I'm an American national, but I do have elements of Asian culture. That doesn't mean I'm purely Asian culture and I got no American culture. As a matter of fact, I have a higher amount of American culture. I mean, the more I'm in Asia, the more I realize how American I am, you know, and just like let's just say I'm so American. I also don't even like these generalizations of Western versus Eastern culture because there's just so many differences between just your typical American out here, and you run into a lot of Russians or other Western people like in from England or whatever, and you realize just Americans are very different. And I can relate far more to an American. So as an American, of course, my main culture will be American, but I do have a bit of Korean culture in me. Why? Because my parents, I mean, they obviously my parents are Korean, so they're gonna as you grow up, you're gonna obviously have Korean elements of culture, because family does impact it. But um, I mean, this was, to be honest with you, a tough thing for me to handle as growing up. It's like, what am I? So I think every Asian American sort of struggles with this, or anybody else that has sort of like these dualities of culture. And I think what we have to understand and how I have, eventually resolved this is there's a lot of words being thrown out there, dual identities, dualities of cultures. I don't have dual identities. I am Asian American all the time, which means I'm American all the time. From a very young age, I understood that. And I didn't want anybody to question my identity as an American, and I went as far as to join the military and to serve the country because I thought that that was the ultimate way I could define myself as an American and to the American values. Now, it's another thing, we went to war with Iraq and blah, blah, blah. And then I was a little bit disillusioned because, I didn't like that part of America at that time, but that's a whole other story or whatever. But at the end of the day, with all its ugliness, I'm still proud to be an American. Why? Because not particularly because we do everything right. As a matter of fact, we're doing a lot of crap wrong lately. but I've traveled a lot. I've been in many countries, and I still can't really find a country that has the ideals and the mentality that I wanna think in, like America. And I think it just is because I'm American, you know? I honestly think that this thing where you call Asian Americans like Korean American, Chinese American, or whatever, I actually get annoyed with that, but I just sort of accepted it because I'm not gonna fight these little battles, you know? But if I had to break it down, like it's cool. Like, okay, I get it. Like when people like most people don't mean much by this or try to offend me by saying you're Korean American instead of just telling me I'm American because I define myself as an American. When I'm out here and they're like, "What are you?" I don't write in my nationality I'm Korean American. I'm American, and people tell me where you're from. I'm American, you know. I'm from USA, I don't say I'm from Korean American, but I get it when they see that I'm American. People like Americans, we like to share cultures and celebrate other people's cultures. So when I say I'm Korean American, there's like something to talk about and stuff. So I try to look at it from a positive light, But just like put yourself in my shoe, and then think about it. Like if you like nobody from America is really American unless you're Native American. And as a matter of fact, they call them Native Americans because they sort of got relegated to having to put an adjective to define themselves. Whereas, Italian Americans or French Americans or what have you, all these other Western countries, they don't have to. They can just say they're American. And they're like, the friggin' bread and butter definition of being an American. But yeah, I mean, imagine if you had to like say, "Hey, you know what? I'm like half French, half Italian American." Like, wouldn't it be sort of freaking annoying? Although, I mean, um, it's nice. It's like something to talk about. So the way I handle this is, I'm okay saying, "Hey, I'm Korean American" or whatever, because I like to try to, interpret things in a positive way. And most of the times it's because people want to know what culture I sort of, have in me as well, just because they're interested in me, not because they're trying to offend me. So I say, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then when I, hear their last name and it's like, oh, Rosario or whatever, then I'm like, oh, if they look really white, then I'm like, oh, are you like Hispanic, like Spanish origin or whatever? And they'll say, oh, yeah, yeah, So it's like, that's the way I gauge if, like this is okay, And if they're like, yeah, how'd you know? Like, and I'm like, I can tell by your name or just like how you look, you like your nose. Like, I'm pretty good at telling, like heritage, right? And then that's just a cool way to share our cultures, because I'm interested in learning about other cultures. And I think that's all cool. I'm okay with that. So I'm not too offended at having to put an adjective in front because, it sort of gets the conversation like beyond. But what the point is, back to the point, I think this is two different ways of defining Asian Americans, like I'm Asian American, which means I could be Asian when I'm in Asia and it's convenient, and I could be American when I'm in America and I can be an American, like Eileen Gu, or the way that I was taught, and most of the people around me define being Asian American is this. I don't know, like this is very new. Like you guys tell me. I don't know if you guys have any Asian Americans. Like I know there's some Asian Americans in the audience, but uh, have you heard of this definition of being Asian American before Eileen Gu? I'm American when I'm in the US and Chinese when I'm in China. Like it seems like it's just like doesn't mean much, but it means a lot. She's redefining being Asian American. I've never heard of this definition until now. Like I always thought of it this way. Um and the living out here in Asia has only reinforced my views that this is the only way they are going to accept you, you know. So let me explain. But let's go ahead and check out the comments. Is there any other? Oh, okay. There's other Olympics that are doing the same thing, but nobody is complaining about them. Um, yeah. I think she should be stripped of her USA citizenship. Spread all my I think most people know the difference between ethnicity, race, and nationality. Come on, Ethan. If I close my eyes, all I hear is a boy from OC. Yeah, I'm totally American, man. I mean, good. This is a hot topic. Yeah, for sure. I mean, let's stay away from Eileen Gu. I just it's a hot topic, and it just sort of triggered me because I was in this Facebook a group called Subtle Asian Traits. I made I'm not gonna even go there right now because I got to finish up uh, what I think about being Asian American and living in Asia America in Asia, and how they're going to treat you as an Asian American if this is really true, if they're going to treat you as a Korean because I'm in Korea, like that's what I want to talk about. Um, Ethan, have you ever looked into Korea's law regarding multiple citizenship? Yes, I have. I'll talk about that. How come Korea accepts multiple citizenships on their website, but they don't give the citizenship to some ethnic Koreans? I'll talk about that. Can I start calling myself Irish American? I don't know. I mean, I think we should apply this, like labeling sort of evenly across everybody, or like just decide, are we just going to call Asian Americans Americans and just say that they're American? Because I think, calling them Chinese American or whatever is what has ended up leading to this kind of situation with Eileen Gu. I mean, I can't blame her. She's just a little kid. She's confused about her identity, and when in doubt, choose a route that's going to lead to the money, right? China is more nationalist than some Asians, only if you got an Irish passport. Right? Okay, yeah, I don't know the exact way it applies to you guys, but I just thought that would be funny. I mean, we don't call Irish Americans, but it's like they could be just as Irish American as any other Korean American. Like we could be fourth generation Korean American, but they still call us Korean American. It's not like you ever shed the Korean because it's like after 3 generations you can start calling them regular. It's I don't know. It's just built into the American culture, right? But let me just talk about this. Let me tell you why I think my definition of being an Asian American is what you should expect, at least in Asia for now. Maybe we're gonna define being Asian American. Hey, you know what? If we can do this, just like we can get away with this, whatever. I guess I'm not gonna complain. Although I might not think it's fair for other people, but I don't know, whatever. This is not a battle I'm gonna fight too much. Actually, I did fight, but anyways, in Asia at least, you're always a foreigner in Asia. It's just, we get this all the time, and I know David's been to Thailand and stuff. We all know. I mean, you don't know me because like I think a lot of like Americans, Irish Americans, French Americans, or blah blah blah, they go to Thailand and they think like Asian Americans, we can get away with it. Like we're gonna be treated like Asians when we're in Thailand, but I can tell you that's not the case. But because also my experiences are in a bubble, I could sort of admit, if somebody says you probably get treated with less racism, which because they're just, I don't know, like racism is such a hard word, but basically, like people say, you're being racist if you just get treated different because you're a race. Yeah. So, I guess it's possible that white Americans could get treated much differently than Asian Americans. But I can tell you for sure that there's just as many pros to being a white American and being treated differently as there's cons. Like maybe you guys get pulled over more often driving a motorcycle because it's like pretty obvious. You can spot a white guy driving a motorcycle, like a big white guy, and they can pull you over. But and even if like cops have every like cause to just as much pull me over, I could sort of sometimes blend in when I'm driving by them at 40 kilometers per hour. So yeah, I mean I could definitely see that we're treated more Asian there. But there's pros too. I mean, like my like white friends, they get, sort of it's really easy for them to get laid because there's like this labeling. So I mean, whether or not you think that's a pro or not, because sometimes they're like, I don't want to be like seen as a sexual object or blah blah blah. How do you get to date all the chula like graduate girls or blah blah blah? So I mean, there could be just as many pros and cons to this, but at the end of the day, you're still always going to be a foreigner, and obviously, and in detail, I say most of the times in all countries, and all of the time in some countries. Like there are certain countries like Thailand. I don't. It's like I'm sure there's few exceptions. There's always exceptions, but for all intents and purposes, it's pretty. You're always pretty much gonna be a foreigner. Like becoming a citizen as a foreigner in Thailand with no ethnic connection to Thailand is pretty much impossible. I mean, I'm gonna go out on a limb and just say that because I have yet to see really anybody accomplish this yet. I mean, I have yet to know anybody with like that I know personally that's even gotten a permanent residency, much less a citizenship there. Okay. I have, however, seen like ethnic Thais, like they were born there. And then they go to America and then they got their American citizenship and then they went back to Thailand. They did some paperwork and, like paid off, like blah, blah, blah. And then they became like Thai citizens as well and got dual citizenship. But for, you guys, you could expect that you're always going to be a foreigner to some degree. I mean, obviously, if you stay there longer, you have more of a connection to the community. You like do great things. Thais are gonna, accept you more as an Asian, I guess, or more as a Thai. But I have yet to hear anybody say, "Hey, I feel I'm completely Thai." Really. So I think most of the times in all countries, you're gonna be treated as a foreigner. And there's a psychological issue to that when you're very weak-minded and you don't really know how to define your identity. And people get really depressed over this, And that is why I think, the only real way being Asian American myself is I'm Asian American. Like I don't hesitate. Like when I was younger, I did. I'm like, I mean, I'm in Korea, so like people were asking me, what am I? And I sort of like hesitated on answering them. I'm like Korean, like, and then I would say like, like I'm an American citizen. Like I would do this, but now I don't hesitate. I'm American. As a matter of fact, I don't even speak to them in Korean. Like, although I speak pretty good Korean, my first approach is, unless like there's some kind of an understanding that we're supposed to talk in Korean, I will start off as like my conversations, everything in English. That is the base point of my identity, even though I can speak pretty fluent Korean. Like, and then people like are always surprised, oh, you speak pretty good Korean. Like the Koreans are like, yeah, but I'm more fluent in English. And then they're just like, okay, like they accept it. Like I don't like, because I am American, like just because I speak Korean, should I always default to speaking in Korean with them? Like, no, why are you treating me any differently than another foreigner? Although in Korea it is a bit different. So that is a little caveat for those Korean Americans out there. And I don't know the culture of being Chinese American in China or Thai American in Thailand, but Korea does specifically have a different definition for Korean Americans or Korean, French or somebody from another country. But generally, most foreign Koreans, the people with the F4 visas like me, are from America. Like, it just Korea is just so closely aligned with America. Most of the foreigners have, like, American nationalities. Although, you've seen me, like, like, well, actually, she's like that Jex girl, she's actually fully Korean. Like, I think Koreans generally only switch their nationality if it's America, Canada, or Australia, or like maybe a European country, because they're probably they wouldn't switch for a European country anymore. Because honestly, like being a Korean national is far more privileged than all these other countries. And now it's like I feel like being a Korean national is more privileged than being an American if you just want to talk about like benefits. So it's quite rare for you to see like they could have like they could be just as like Mexican Korean or something as me, like because they grew up all their life there and their cultural like dual identities are just the same. But generally, you won't see Mexican Koreans like they actually have a Mexican nationality. They'll actually they'll like all the Koreans I know that live in Korea have Korean passports. You know what I'm saying? Um, so so that's how they usually choose to be. Um, let me catch up on the. There's so many. Well, that's not a requirement for Asians and Latino America. Yeah, stick out like a sore thumb in time. Please accept how your parents don't need to pay rent by making a deposit. Is the system anywhere else in the world? How does the landlord? Okay, this is a different topic. I'll talk about it some other time. But yeah, it's the chunse system. It only works, as far as I know, in Korea. All four of your grandparents were born in South Korea, Ethan? Yes, they were. What I really dislike about what Eileen Gu is doing is she's trying to have it both ways. I empathize with you on that. Yeah, you sort of hopped on a little late, but yeah, I mean, she's redefining being Asian American too. Like, I can drop the American when it's convenient. I can drop the Asian when it's convenient. I can have all the education freedoms money, and then I could just be China, blah blah blah. And it's like a privilege only she's afforded because China really wants her for the gold medals because there's no report of her actually giving up her American citizenship, which is a requirement for most Chinese Americans. Like every Chinese American has to give up their Chinese nationality when they become an American. Like China doesn't allow dual citizenship, but Eileen's getting away with it. And she's just telling everybody else to cry about it if they got an issue. In a few weeks, she will go right back to the US and pop into China when being Chinese is more convenient. It all feels incredibly ungrateful to the country she grew up in. All this stuff about her spending summers in Beijing changes nothing. Okay, yeah. So I mean, so I was in this forum and I was talking about this, and then people are defending Eileen, saying, like I understand her because America's racist. So like I got all sorts of comments on here. But this was just one ridiculous one. Like she's America's racist, blah blah blah. I mean, yeah, they're sort of racist. I mean, but it's still our native country, and so is every other country, honestly. I will say though, I mean, before I could just like without a doubt say America is the least racist, but at least as an Asian American, lately there's countries like Korea where I actually do feel there's less racism, you know. Like it might be different if you're white, but as an Asian American, I definitely do feel less racism here. Um so I won't like say, but it's still the least racist country in the world. It's like it's getting polarized, but I think a lot of this, honestly, this is where it gets controversial. But this is the issue I have with her defining being Asian American like this, and why I sort of wanted to make this statement. Um, you can't have it both ways because it's not fair. I know, like, I've heard both sides of the story. Okay, so people think it's completely fair for what she does is they're saying, hey, because I was a victim in America and I experienced racism, I could take advantage of this and just like be Korean when I want to and be American when I want to and like take both of this like advantages, right? Um, okay, I mean, it's not that I agree with them, but I understand their reasoning. Okay. And the other one is they think it's fair because they're just privileged, blah blah blah. I mean, but like when it comes down to actual fairness, is it fair? And the way I want to think about it is like, does an Italian American or a French American, I'm like, there's no such thing. But I'm telling you, like, do other Native Americans have this choice or privilege? You know, they don't. So in a fair world, why should only Chinese Americans be able to, conveniently be Chinese when they're in China and Asian American when they're in America and get all the benefits? And I'm not just picking on China. Same with like Korean Americans or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Part of like I can't really relate to Eileen because to be honest with you, like there is nothing really similar between me and her, right? Other than the fact that she's half Asian, ethnically. That's like the only common trait that I have with her. She's a woman, I'm a man. She's the other, her even the half Asian part, she's Chinese, I'm Korean. And Chinese and Koreans are very different. Um, it's night and day different, especially modern Koreans, because, as I've been pointed out on these forums, Korea is a colony of America. That's probably about the most logical, like, trolling I've actually heard on there. It sort of is. I'll accept that. I'll give it to them. So it's very different. Korea isn't communist. Um, I mean, we're even very different than Japanese. Like they think like because of countries like this, Japanese is on the very opposite end of the spectrum where they're more democratic than Koreans, but Japanese are probably more similar to Chinese culturally. Like they follow like authority and stuff like this. Like Mayu will always complain about how Koreans always complain. Koreans are like the best complainers. Like we're probably the closest thing to America. Like we love to complain about everything, and that's why I'm always defending and putting into perspective how bad, like how Korea isn't really all that bad. It's like, and Americans could empathize with this. You go outside and people think we're the most racist country, we're the shittiest country, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, it's not really that bad. It's just Americans do complain a lot. Our media does freaking make a big deal out of every little incident and make it seem like it's the worst country in the world because they have the freedom to do so. And Korea is very similar. Of all the countries, you will not see people discuss politics like openly in the subway and do all say whatever the heck they want because there's no repercussions to it. I mean, I don't have the slide, but just research the press like rankings, like what country has the most freedom of speech in Asia, and it will be Korea by far, right? That's why they're all moving their headquarters over here from Hong Kong, like because you know what happened with Hong Kong. So now they're all moving their media outlets to Korea now because it has still relatively the most freedom of speech, you know. Like actually it's ranked higher than America, I believe, in the freedom of speech scale by the International Press Association. So yeah, we like to complain a lot. So the point is Koreans and Chinese different. Even like growing up, like they try to like broadly paint being Asian American as being Chinese American a lot. Even when I get called racist slurs, I get like it's like a double offense for a Korean American because we're a minority of the minority. So like when kids would call me racist stuff, they'd say I'm a chink, but y'all know chink is Chinese, right? So it's like, at least if you're gonna like uh, throw racial slurs at me, do the right one. It's like it's a double offense to me, right? But yeah, like then part of the reading requirement in like 10th grade. I don't know if it still is like ninth grade, because they have to throw in a book that's Asian, is Joy Luck Club, and then our teacher like acts like, oh, this is like being Asian, blah blah blah. No, it's not. Nothing in that Joy Luck Club I can resonate with. Koreans don't play mahjong. Our mothers aren't like freaking gathered around playing mahjong. It's like it's like considered gambling. It's like the worst thing you could be doing in Korea. Like it's like so un-Korean to be like doing that, It's not like a very wholesome thing to do. So I don't know. I couldn't relate to any of that. But like point is I can't really identify with Eileen. And thing that concerns me about her definition of this is she is putting out there that this is a definition of being Asian American and changing it from what it has been, to my knowledge, and what I define being Asian American as, where you can't take the frickin' American out. I could take the Asian out because that's a sort of just a cultural adjective. If I had to, I could take the Asian out. I sort of get annoyed when they call me Korean American. Like, I got over it. But I can never take the American out because that is the base noun. That is my nationality. But Eileen Gu is saying, hey, being Chinese American means I can be Chinese when I'm in China, American when I'm in America. And the reason why I think, let's just, the big gorilla in the bag, the elephant in the room is this is more of an issue because it sort of is China, It's like, I'm not being racist when I say there's obvious tensions with China and America. There hasn't been any recent espionage of Koreans like stealing American defense, hacking into American defense data and stealing it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that hasn't happened. But yeah, there's instances of Chinese nationals becoming spies, infiltrating American, so it's like more of an issue that a Chinese American is doing it, because when you're an American and you're looking at this, you're like, well, because she could do this, then that means she's not fully American, because sometimes she is Chinese, when she's in China. I mean, it is a fair statement. She's not fully American because she could drop the American sometimes, and half her life she's gonna be Chinese. It's a fact, because like apparently she's been living in China for half her life, so she was not American for half that time. you know and what worries them more is, like, how do you know that like she's gonna just conveniently drop and take off to China and be Chinese when shit hits a fan? Like, are they gonna be my battle buddies? you know like, and that sort of irks me because I've made sacrifices to define myself as being Korean American like this. I joined the military, you know, to say, hey, we Asian Americans are just as American as anybody, you know? But now she's saying, no, being Asian American is like this other thing where you can flip flop. So, yeah, I'm going to say it does irk me a little. And I don't blame other Americans who don't have this privilege of being Asian American and being able to flip flop like she does to think it's unfair. And this further leads on to possibly more racist attacks on unwarranted people. So the other day I saw news that the Korean embassy is going to reach out to America, like New York or whatever, because there's been a rise of cases against Asians, like violence against Asians. And it's disgusting. Like, Some Korean lady was like stabbed to death in her Manhattan apartment. Manhattan is like an expensive area. Like, how the heck did that happen? Um, like one of the ambassadors to Korea, or like somebody working in the like America, like an ambassador or like from the embassy. He was like sucker punched in the face in broad daylight. You know, this is all like unacceptable stuff. I'm not saying I condone this, but I think there is a little bit of responsibility for us to stand up and say, hey, don't be racist because we're fully American, and have sort of a unified communication that we are just as American as you. But then you got some girl out there going, no, that's not the case. I'm not fully American. I'm sometimes Chinese and sometimes American when I want to be. And this irks the crap out of me because I served in the military. My parents and my community, the Korean American community, everybody I know is very American. They have made sacrifices to do that because there are opportunities that present, maybe not a lot in your life, but at times where conveniently, being a Korean, when it suits you, um, could benefit you. But the people I know have always stuck, to the values of being American. And what also concerns me is when I was in the subtle Asian traits sort of forum and I posted up this thread, I had a lot of attacks, personal attacks. And personal attacks don't bother me as much anymore, as Ronan Sana would know. Like, because I get trolled all the time. Like, so, I mean, that's fine. You could personally attack me. But what irks me is something they continually kept saying, I realize is a sign of a difference, a significant difference in values between even my generation, millennials, and Gen Zers. I don't know if it has to, like, in subtle Asian traits, I do notice that, or at least the people that comment on there were mostly Chinese. And I don't want to sound too racist, but it is a fact that Chinese worship money. And I say it's a fact because there literally is a god of money. Like, you ask a Korean and they, like, most Koreans think this is quite ridiculous and materialistic, although I think it's quite hypocritical because I will say Koreans are also materialistic, but at least they're not so blatant about it. There is no god of money in Korea. Like most Koreans are Christians, and although I will say there are certain interpretations of the Christian like religion, and Americans are also to blame for this, like Joel Osteen and these certain pastors that preach the prosperity gospel, like, oh, you'll prosper and be rich if you believe in God or whatever. But generally, Christianity is marked by suffering, and sacrifice. So generally speaking, at least on face value, you're not supposed to be materialistic. It's like, but China is very different in this aspect. And I can't speak of all Asian countries, but it was like also interesting to me when I was in Thailand. One of the gods you'll see, like you'll see it when you go to Central World. It's like a big shrine. There's a shrine of like an elephant. Whenever you see a shrine with an elephant on there, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not Buddhist, but I've been told that is the god of wealth. Like that's who you pray to for money. The elephant one. And I'm like, aren't Thais Buddhist? Like, so I can only see like in Korea, you only see statues of Buddha. You know what I'm saying? Like, so this was interesting to me. It's like, well, who's this god and what does that have anything to do with Buddhism? And I was like, well, I don't know. I still don't get it. So that's why I'm saying, correct me if I'm wrong. But there are certain countries that, like Asian countries that actually literally worship money, so it was sort of a culture shock to me, but what was telling is their personal attacks on me usually were in line with, like, the post I originally put up. Let me at least read that. So it was like, I just sort of honestly did it as a fun-loving sort of satirical, like, poke at this article. And let's see, the article was, um regardless of the discussion surrounding which country she should be representing, I think we could all relate to this headline, was this, in subtle Asian traits. And I couldn't relate to it at all, because this person is probably Chinese, and my Korean, like, Christian values don't align with this. But it says, Eileen Gu may have wowed the world with the skiing performances at Beijing 2022, but she still has one fan left to win over, her grandma, who would much prefer to see her become a doctor or a lawyer rather than the world's best freestyle skier. And at this, like, honestly, I don't really have particular hate for this girl. Like, I learn a lot with this comment, right? Like, right now I have 543 likes on this comment and like 400 responses. But my comment was, I'm not a fan, so she's got at least 2. There goes the story. And before you go on and accuse me of being racist, blah, blah, let me say I'm not a fan, not because I care what country she represents, but because I don't particularly find anything she does any more inspirational than any one of the hundreds of athletes that win gold medals. Can someone tell me why she's inspirational other than simply being half Asian? Last time I checked, there's a dozen handful of Asian athletes that have won gold medals at the Winter Olympics, many of whom have overcome much more adversity and come from less privileged backgrounds than her. Other than her notoriety of deciding to represent a country she wasn't born in, I don't see anything that's any more special or newsworthy about her. And I had to dig really deep and, like, think why else she might be special. So I added this. She's also pretty. I'll give her that. But so is a doping figure skater. All right. So that was my comment. It was like, it's pretty, like, I just thought it was funny because, like, the article is trying to say, like, everyone's a fan. I'm like, what do you mean everyone's a fan? Like, I don't even know this girl. I don't even care for this girl, like, why am I a fan of this girl? Like, I'm not a fan of her. Like, I mean, I'm not like, honestly, I don't particularly hate this girl. Like, on a superficial level, let me just say, on a surface level of, like, an Asian athlete winning medals, I could celebrate that. That's great, oh yeah, that's great. But she is, like, I'm not being, like, racist or anything. This is a fact. She is one of the most controversial, if not the most controversial Asian American athlete that America has ever seen, right? I don't even think we can really define her as Asian American anymore because she's literally Chinese now, right? Because she says she's Chinese, I'm representing China. Like, she literally had to go out of her way because, she was training in America and stuff to say, hey, I'm Chinese. I represent China, right? So, like, I don't see why I should be a fan of her, Like, and people think it's because I hate China or whatever. No, like, I think China did everything that it should have done. It's illegal to steal her, like many other countries steal athletes. And with her, it's completely legal for her to go and compete for China. Good for her, If I was a friend, I would personally congratulate her. You made a ton of money. Great. But am I gonna be a fan of her as some Asian guy just because, oh, she's an Asian and she won medals? Because on that aspect, she is literally no more special than any other Asian athlete that wins a ton of medals, Like, they're like, oh, she's the youngest to have ever won, like, the ski thing. And I'm like, are you forgetting Chloe Kim? I think, what was she? Wasn't like Chloe Kim like 16 or something? Like she won it last year. She's she was younger than Eileen when she won the freaking snowboarding thing. I think she's like the youngest woman to have won snowboarding or whatever. Like, that's a bigger accomplishment than that. Is she the only Asian that's won 3 medals? No, like there's like this Korean athlete that's won like 5 or something in short track. Like no one's like talking about that person, you know, like so what else makes her special? And the only thing I can think of was, well, she's notorious because she switched her identity, you know. So could somebody tell me something else as to why I should be a fan of her? That I don't know. I was like legitimately just asking, but it's sort of in a satirical way. And honestly, I got no other response other than just repeats. But the one thing that I didn't throw in there in that comment, although most of us assume it, is because, you know, I don't want to like talk shit on her and throw shade at her, was for the money, right? So the way that they tell me that I should be a fan of her is they will start attacking my financial success and say, you're just jealous of her because you're not as successful as her, you know? And you're not making as much money as her. She's going to be making $20 million, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm throwing shade. Okay, first of all, it doesn't make any sense because there's, if I was just simply jealous of people who are more successful, then I'd be throwing shade at, you know, like Jeff Bezos, although, you know, I really hate that guy too. So that he's not a good example. But there's other guys that make a ton of money. I don't really have an issue with, like, you know, Steve Jobs. I think he did a great job because he's Steve Jobs. So there's absolutely no correlation. You guys all, I mean, you guys on this channel, I'm speaking to the choir, y'all know I don't really care about the money. I'm the guy that freaking gave up my career and my job to travel in Asia. So no, I don't really give a shit about the money. But I keep getting this attack like, you're just successful, and like because she's successful. So the like, and the way that they define success is money. And literally there was like a conversation I had, and I'm like, I think it's quite hilarious that you're so materialistic and your ultimate judgment of a person's value is money. And this person goes on and like speaks with such assurances that I'm the person that's crazy. It's like, isn't money the ultimate value of one's worth? And I'm like, what? But like, I had so many of these comments on here, I mean, that I am now pretty like convinced. I mean, I sort of suspected it, but and it's not like I don't like money. It's not that I don't have a bit of materialism in me or whatever. But it's just like gotten to a point where money is the ultimate. Let me just read you some. Like, I can't make this crap up. It's just ridiculous. Let's see. I don't even know where to start. Oh my god, there's like 400 comments on this. Okay, you know what? Let me just share that screen. Have I gone through this slide? Yeah, that's the. Let me just share this screen now. But before I share the screen, let me go ahead and actually catch up on your comments, guys. Most Asian countries don't allow multiple citizenships. Yeah, there's rules for some, and then there are rules for others. America's racist, but China's not, right? Most Western countries don't care how many citizenships you have. Going overseas to live as an American is not the high-hitting. That's fine. But turning your back on your home country in the Olympics is pretty ungrateful. If you move to Canada and become a Canadian, we can call you Korean American Canadian. Can you be all three? I guess yeah, you could have dual citizenship. I feel this is an athlete problem. Athletes from other countries live, work, and train in the U.S. and then go represent other countries. I think it's BS. Train and live in your own country then. These are all valid points. I wonder what the Uyghur people would say. I don't even want to talk about that. I'm like a band. But we can talk about it offline. Ethan gets it. Well said, bro. You ever watched a documentary called Japan, the White Man of Asia? No, I haven't. Interesting. My mom and sister like Joy Luck Club. I mean, it's the book itself is entertaining. I just didn't like how my teacher would like broadly assume that was my experience as a Korean American, because it's not. Ethan is nailing this. America is our operating system regardless of race. Yeah. What's a good equivalent Korean movie? Oh, there's so many. This is another I have to sort of wrap up. I got to get up at 6 tomorrow to go skiing, guys. It's mostly an athletic one because they were supposed to represent only one country. They only want to talk about it when it supports the white supremacy theme, one of their favorites. By they, I mean the media. If you eat kimchi, drink soju every day, only use Samsung products, and you the realist Korean. The morning worship, I do not doubt that. Does it look like a golden calf? Fat Chinese Buddha is a symbol of wealth. Oh yeah, there's that one, the fat guy, and then you rub his tummy. But in Thailand, there is this other dude. I think it's Hindu. It's like an elephant. Does Korea do nativity scenes for Christmas? They do at churches. Like, the biggest religion in Korea is Christianity, right? I think in Taiwan too. Notice how the Chinese treated the American athletes that actually gave up her citizenship, Zhu Yi. They threw her under the bus for skating. That's another unrelated topic. I don't want to throw shade at China. I think China is just it's doing what every country should do, serving themselves. There's nothing wrong with that. Eileen is serving herself. There's particularly nothing wrong with that, but I'm not a fan. And there's nothing wrong with it because at this point it's not illegal, right? But maybe we need to start thinking about, China doesn't allow dual citizenship for a reason. So maybe America should start thinking about it. It's just like for the argument of fairness, although I'm not supporting it, I'm not going to go out on a limb to do it because it doesn't benefit me. But if they did, I wouldn't cry foul because it's certainly fair. Like every other country does it. So you got to choose one or the other. Hey Ethan, what's up? Hey, if you're Chinese, will you be a fan of her, Ethan? No. This is another thing. A lot of people are saying, oh, it's because this is China and the CCP. If Chloe Kim freaking did that, I would be angrier at Chloe Kim than like my sort of non-opinion of Eileen, Okay, I'm sort of annoyed with Eileen because she's trying to redefine being Asian American, but I'm sort of like triggered by that. But on a personal level, I have no issues with Eileen. But if Chloe Kim did it, I would personally have an issue with her because she literally represents me to the dot because she is Korean American, and I would further be at least I have a little cop out with Eileen because she's Chinese American. I could say, hey, you know what, she is Asian American, but there's nothing similar between Chinese and Korean, culturally, and I could at least have a little bit of a cop out. But if Chloe Kim did that, I would be far more critical, you know, because it's like, what the heck, you know, like now I'm going to be the receiving end of the anger at every other American who, you know, rightfully thinks that this is unfair, that Korean Americans get to just pick and choose what's convenient, but they can't because they're stuck being American, you know. So why should we treat you Korean Americans same as ourselves, you know? There's got to be some kind of a give and take here, you know? And I couldn't argue with that, like with me, because I have like a sort of a like, first of all, I have the brain power to actually understand what is fair and not fair from like a very unbiased point of view. But point two, I have a conscience, you know, like I feel guilty. But like some people just don't feel guilty at all. Like I'll share with you, like, oh, there's this one dude, he was really interesting. Dennis Wong. Okay, it was this dude. But it wasn't on this comment. Like, I was like, really interesting what this guy was saying. I was like, what the heck? Let me just keep going. It's interesting that people are leaving America now. Does anyone outside of America care about this? Not really, I don't think. But here, I'll also give you this caveat. It's also another thing if you gave your best to America, but America just said you're not good enough. So if Eileen Gu gave her best for America and they say, hey, you don't get picked, I would have zero issues if Eileen Gu represented China, because they're like, hey, you know what? You're gonna, like, we're gonna, you can represent us, you know? We're gonna give you a chance. In that sense, I sort of feel like America betrayed her. But it's not really, because, you know, there's other ones. It's just like, it's just business, athletics. And this actually happened in Korea too. Like, there was this Korean dude, I think his name is Victor On. He's a short track speed skater. And then the Koreans are like there was a big scandal, but they just sort of bullied him or whatever, and they didn't choose him. So like when they were having the Winter Olympics in Russia like took him, and he won the gold. But Koreans were cheering him. Why? It's because, you know, it's like, in all fairness, they abandoned him. They betrayed him. And as a matter of fact, there was an inquiry into what happened and why the Korean short track thing let this happen, you know, and they criticized themselves, and there was adjustments made, and the corruption was rooted out. Yeah, so my half Asian kid had to put up with racism in school. I can't blame anyone who isn't white for leaving or not feeling any particular loyalty. On a personal level, I could say yeah. But the fact of the matter is Eileen isn't leaving. When asked, because she hasn't given up her American citizenship and China doesn't allow dual citizenship, they keep asking her about her nationality, and she says, I'm Chinese when I'm in China, and I'm American when I'm in America. So she hasn't. She's just trying to take advantage of both worlds. But yeah, if your country has betrayed you, you know, because I don't know the racism that everybody, like, I think I was lucky. I was surrounded by great Americans, so my perspective on America is pretty positive, right? Like, as far as living there, working, and all this stuff, yeah, I still stand by. You should probably come to Asia. Like, you're gonna get your money. Like, go, your lifestyle's gonna be better. Blah blah blah. But as far as the American people, that's another thing. I love American people, right? I'm American, right? And then I choose to identify myself as an American. But other people could have had a real crap experience, and if they were betrayed by their country, like I said, like, you know, sports or Olympic, where they didn't choose them, I have no issues with them. As a matter of fact, I cheer for them, you know, because they're an underdog. So yeah, that's how I stand on that. Notice how Ethan is a social justice warrior in the US, but doesn't say anything about China's social issues. Such a hypocrite. Ethan Wong sounds right. I don't talk about China's social issues because I don't. This has nothing to do with it. You know, being how I define myself as Asian American. That's just another. And I don't need to talk about it for you guys to find out about it. And I am in Asia, living in Asia, and I, you got to sort of understand, it's not good to be freaking talking shit on China, right? At this point. But hey, Ethan, I heard a lot of people don't like Coupang even though they use the service a lot. Is that true? I said Eileen. Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Oh, my bad. I missed it. Yeah, it is true. It's like Amazon. We all don't like Amazon, but we use it. Same thing with Coupang. But okay, let me go ahead and go show you what's happening here with slides. No, not slides. Share. Okay, I gotta stop the screen, and then I gotta share screen, and then I gotta go to the window, and then I gotta go to, okay, here, boom. All right. Like I'm telling you guys, I'm a popular guy. It's the most, like, there's 543 likes. Like this like I had 53 comments, but there's like 300 or something. It's ridiculous. Like 367 replies. So that's why it's really hard to find the examples that I'm thinking about. Let me summarize this by talking about the values of these Gen Zers. I had an interesting conversation with, it's in Korea too. Like I was talking to this director and he's just like, yeah, the young kids, they just pretty much just value money at this point. And I think, a lot of it has to do with, the generations before us. They just created a capitalist society where we value money, so I can't really blame these little kids, but the reason I want to point this out is not to like, say it's their fault or whose fault it is, but I just want to show you the current state of values of these kids, because most of the people on here are kids, I think. I don't know, because they're just so mentally low. It's like a lot of these are just stupid trolling stuff. I really have fun trolling people. Where is this guy? It was like, he was the most, like, I was just, I can't find it. Why can't I find this? Very interesting. Oh, is this it? Here. I love this guy. I was just so blown away with what he was saying. Okay. Still no such thing. Oh, jeez. There was a lot of comments, so I forgot where he first said anything. All right. Ethan Moon, are immigrants who move to the USA ungrateful to their old country? I guarantee you this view of people's relationships with their countries is utterly alien to all non-Americans. Okay, what did I say originally? Okay. There's such a weird way to view nationality. People do not take education, etc. from country. No one owes anything to America. No one needs to show gratitude to a country. I don't know. I don't, like, there's so much here, but I'll just summarize. You guys sort of know my values. I feel like I owe something to America, and that's why I joined the military, etc. Right? Maybe my like I think what I did is unnecessary. You don't really need to join the military, you know. I believe that or whatever. But I do feel gratitude for the opportunities that are given and the privileges that I take for granted sometimes being an American. I do. So I probably said some to that degree. And it's like this is a weird way to view nationality. People do not take education, etc., from a country. No one owes anything to America. No one needs to show gratitude to a country. Um, are immigrants who move to the USA ungrateful to their own country? I guarantee you this view like it doesn't make any sense because if this happened with a Chinese athlete and she switched allegiance to America, Chinese people will be up in arms about it. I guarantee you that. So like I don't know what this guy's talking about. Like if this happened with a Korean, like any other country, they would probably if it they would be treated with far more disdain than Eileen Gu is getting treated right now. If like I could guarantee you that. They come from any other country but America and they switch allegiances to America. It's like Eileen Gu is relatively praised, you know, like so no. Um uh Yeah, so I sorry my tax dollars are paying into an education system and the Olympic Committee and the sports associations that get funding to raise and train US athletes have wasted money on her, blah, blah, blah. And this guy was like, nah, gratitude to a country is still a nonsense concept. Education, etc., are things that you expect the country to provide for you. Why would anyone show gratitude to a country for running schools? Also, I don't think she did receive funding from the US Olympic Committee. I don't know. Maybe that he might be right about that. But the point is like he is not only taking shit for granted, but he thinks it's a right. Free education, all this stuff is they have to provide it to you. The girls that can't get an education in Afghanistan would say otherwise, you know? It is not like an education is not a right. It is a privilege. Sure, it is lately like we've been spinning it as it's a right because okay, yeah, to a degree, like it's a right of every American. You know, if we can, we should provide it. It's a right for children. In that sense, yes. In a figurative sense, yes. But in reality, it's a privilege that we receive being in a country that holds those values that say that it's a right. But it's not necessarily. And it's not even applicable to Eileen's situation because if she wanted to and she wanted to be fully Chinese, then she could have just gotten her education in China and such. But I highly doubt she would have been as successful. You know, it's just a fact because China doesn't have the infrastructure and the coaches and you know all the logistics to make her a successful Olympic ski champion, at least when she was getting her education in America, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not applicable. Um, but furthermore, let's see this guy like further down, he says something. He said the same thing again. I don't know what I said. I'm like responding to so many people, but he goes and says, still no such thing. I live in the UK a lot, but there's no gratitude simply for growing up here. And I hope other people from immigrant backgrounds realize this too. Nation states are things that need, nation states aren't things that need thinking. Well, and then I'm like, I'm sure UK feels grateful for having an ungrateful citizen like yourself. Do you, man? But yes, free education isn't a right, but a privilege only people in developed countries take for granted. Opportunities and people who help you along the way is also not a right. Spoken like a true entitled Gen Zer. What they gonna do? Kick me out? Guarantee you, no one here I met in real life cares whether or not people are grateful to the country. all those things are great, but it's not a country I should be thanking. I mean, it's just really like nobody cares. Like, uh, I don't know. Maybe it's different in UK, or maybe he's surrounded by like-minded people. But my friends would think, yeah, they would care if I talked like this. You know, the ungrateful bastard. Um, what are they gonna do? Kick me out? No. I mean, I would care. I would care not to be your friend. What you said says a lot about your character. Luckily, you won't get kicked out because you live in a free country, but those kinds of actions in other countries could literally have you disappear. Be grateful for the freedom you're taking for granted. Grateful tart. Yeah, that's pretty mean to him. And he didn't say anything else afterwards. But that's just one example of, like, I don't know, just I think we're in a point where people actually think the point is like only success matters. And I could maybe even blame America mainly for this, because we're the ones that sort of spewed capitalist values all over the world, where corporations and money and profits is the most important thing. So it would be a big hypocrite for me to say, we have no part in this. But I think we got to this point where we're reaping the crops of what we sowed. Where kids, it's like the only thing that matters is what you can get, like there's no loyalty. Like loyalty is not an issue. Like that's why like kids nowadays they keep switching jobs. They're like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna be here, but if there's another place that's gonna pay me more in 3 months, I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna ghost this job. Like this kind of stuff never happened, even during my time, and it's really hard for me to accept. But I think this is the reality of the world that we created by valuing money and capitalism, and this is how we defined success. And although that's not to my values, I can't deny that that's what it is, and I got to respect it now. I'm Even though I might not agree with it, like there's a difference. I don't agree with it, but I got to respect it because that's how it's defined now. It's just it doesn't matter how you get your money, but hey, if you get it, you got it. And if you get it, you should be celebrated, because that is the ultimate dictation of your values, like your worth, how many followers you got on Instagram, how much money you have. And it's just really, really pitiful and sad to see that the world sort of digressed into this. So this was a bit the trigger that I had. And I talked about this. I don't want to repeat what I said. And I sort of want to repeat it for Chris because he sort of hopped on late. But I mean, you can go back and watch it again, listen to it again, and see why I had issue with how Eileen defined being Asian American as just being able to conveniently switch it back and forth. Because my parents of all my friends, they have, sacrificed and worked so hard in America for decades to give us Asian Americans the privilege to be accepted as an American. And, like girls like Eileen are sort of throwing us under the bus and making us targets for racism, which I can't even really define as racism if they say, hey, you know what, you're just an opportunist, because that is like what she is saying is the definition of an opportunist. I mean, like if she says, hey, America betrayed me, whatever, I had shitty issues, I'm just gonna switch my nationality out to China, like I would actually really support her, because I can't I don't know what personal experiences she went through. I can only assume, like, to do that, like, give up all your freedoms in America to become Chinese, it would have been significant, you know, but that's not the case. She is trying to redefine that, you know, this is how it should be, that we're Asian Americans. And it irks me that people are celebrating her for this, because then I might get lumped in with this crowd, you know? And yeah, like I'm okay with celebrating another Asian athlete. You know, she's like, as an athlete, like I like, yeah, she's admirable for sure. 3 Olympic gold medals, young age. Like, I have no issues with that. You know, like, she's great on that aspect. But the messaging she's putting out, and, you know, although I don't want to talk about it, we don't, like, Peanuts is sort of right that she is like people just keep saying, why can't you just celebrate her as an athlete? Because it's like, I would love to just celebrate her as an athlete, but she isn't. It's just a fact, because she's been turned into a political messaging tool, you know. It's like, am I saying anything that's controversial at this point right now? You know, like, is she not a political messaging tool? Like, I think everybody on both sides could agree. So to ignore reality and just say I'm just celebrating her as an athlete is not possible. So I chose to just simply not be a fan. I'm not a particular hater of Eileen Gu. I'm sure she has her own personal reasons, and honestly, nothing she's done is illegal. So more power to her for doing what she needed to do within her um, rights to do. But I wanted to make a stance and say, I'm not a fan, and her values do not align with mine. And I really hope other Asian Americans do this as well, because if we're there and messaging, hey, you know what? I could be Korean when I'm in Korea and American when I'm in America. We can't call racism when people say you're not fully American, you know, because we are, because sometimes we're going to be Korean or Chinese. So that I do have an issue with not Eileen, but with the people that are trying to, like, bully other people to say, hey, you know, you should celebrate her because she's Asian. That's not gonna fly. And it's not because she's Chinese. Like, she could have been Korean, and like I said, I would be even more irked because she's even more closely associated with me. It's like people are saying it's because I'm misogynistic, but it's not. I guarantee if it was a guy, I would be even more irked because it represents me more. Yeah. So if it was a Korean, male, Asian American, I would be like the most irked. You know, I don't know if it's a blessing in disguise that I could sort of have a cop out and say, you know, not only does her values, but her culture has nothing to do with mine. Um, but I'm happy I could say that, because it doesn't. I share nothing in common with this girl. You know, she's not even from my generation. She's not even my gender. She's not even my, you know, ethnic race. She's not. She's not even, like, I don't know if she's even my nationality anymore. Seems like she's Chinese. Um, Most countries provide education because of their incredible return on investment. They aren't doing you a favor. In Europe, many have free post-secondary. Why should you think the system exploiting you? Um, I do. I mean, yeah, if it's a good return on, because it does give a good return on investment. But when she's going and giving the return on investment to China, it's not. So it wouldn't be doing you a favor if you stuck to America, for sure. I mean, it's even another thing to just say, screw it, I'm not going to give anybody a return on their investment and just leave. But yeah, I do think there is a bit of privilege because maybe this is the Korean in me because literally every like you ask any Korean parent here and they will like chop off their arm to send their Korean kids to America to get education if they could guarantee that, because it's so valuable, that American education. So maybe it's just me, but I know the value of American education elsewhere. The value of American education in America is less important. But yeah, there should be some kind of gratitude, I think. I didn't know you like online drama this much. Korean privilege. Um, I don't really like online drama per se that much, but just to wrap it up, like it's sort of been winter and I'm currently working on jailbreaking my like Switch for fun. And there's just like a lot of in between time when I'm like waiting for things or blah blah blah. So I just decided, hey, I'm gonna engage in a bit of drama because my life has been sort of drama free. So on a more positive note, like yeah, because it's like everything is just when everything is just so great, you want a little bit of drama and you want to sort of know what's going on in your life, in the world that's negative as well, and just sort of engage because everything's been just so great here. In Korea. Like tomorrow, I'm going on an all expense paid ski trip. And this is the thing. Being a foreigner in Korea, like I don't really think it's really racism when they treat me as a foreigner in Korea because there's just as many pros, if not more pros, to being a foreigner in Korea, in my experience, than negatives. As a foreigner, I can get away with a lot of like inconvenient stuff or stupid cultures or customs that I don't want to participate in, and I always got to cop out because I can say, I'm American. And like especially as an influencer and even non-influencers, because a lot of the people going on this trip aren't even influencers. They just want foreigners to experience Korean culture. There's like so many programs out here, so that's why they're taking us on an all expense trip. um yeah, I mean, it's great. So, as a foreigner, this is quite important, I think. And this has nothing to do with being Asian American or whatever, because Asian American is a foreigner in Asia because you're still the American noun, right? That's how they define you. They're not gonna, like Eileen saying I'm Chinese when I'm in China. That's a privilege that she has. Most Chinese Americans are American when they're in China. They might be family, but they're still American, you know? Um, and you're never going to be fully considered Chinese, or same in Korea. You're never going to be fully considered Korean until either one, you put a significant amount of time due and understanding of society, and you marry and have a family, blah, blah, blah. It's possible in Korea, I think. It's quite easily possible, at least from a legal sense, certainly. In about 5 years, you can get, permanent residency, citizenships, and although and it's getting better. Like in the past, it was harder because I think Korea was more racist, but Korea is becoming quickly a very like international area, like with more foreigners having to come work here because they got a shortage of labor. They're constantly recruiting overseas. So there's like consistently every year, there's more legislation to have more foreigners in Korea and to accept them as a Korean. So, I mean, we're not quite at the level of America, how diverse America is, but legally speaking, it's getting there. And yeah, so until that time when you can say, hey, I'm fully Korean, and you've given up, your American identity, I'm gonna be a foreigner. And if they associate me with other foreigners, sometimes it's going to be unfair. Like people like, get unfairly profiled. I will correct them and say, hey, you know what? I'm not that, like, and whichever foreigner you talk to or had an experience with is an exception. I'll correct them, but also I find it my responsibility to somewhat, although I can't completely control everybody, to somewhat speak out and against negative actions that foreigners are taking out here. Like I can't, because I am a foreigner. I can't just conveniently say, "Hey, treat me like a Korean, and don't be racist to me when when it's convenient for me, and the stuff that my foreign compatriots are doing is crap." And then also conveniently say, hey, you know what? I'm a foreigner, so I don't have to do Korean stuff. That's unfair. And I totally get why, like a lot of, you'll see on the expat forums, people complaining all the time about, oh, we get profiled and there's racism. I'm not saying that there isn't racism, but like the examples I've talked about, I don't think is necessarily racism. It's almost fair game, like because Koreans don't, it's racism when there's a double standard, and Koreans hold the same standards for them, you know. In Korea, there's different groups. Like you're profiled into, are you rich? Are you not? Are you from what, like province? Like people from, Gyeongsang province don't particularly like Jeolla province sometimes because they had bad blood back in the days, It's like a lot of people are ignorant and don't understand that there's profiling going on even amongst Koreans. So it's not a double standard, and you're going to be profiled as a foreigner. And if other foreigners are messing up, that is the perception that they're going to have on you, and it's somewhat your responsibility to speak out against it in your community and make sure that a majority of your group is not acting a certain way to some degree. um it's not ultimately your responsibility, like you can't take the blame for all of it, but if you've like not even spoken out against it, then I don't think there's anything you can say about it. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're supporting it, certainly if you're celebrating it, then yeah, like there's no empathy. Like if you're celebrating Eileen Gu and saying, I celebrate the fact that she's defining being Chinese American as, hey, I'm going to conveniently shed my American and pledge my allegiance to China when I'm in China. And I'm going to conveniently pledge my allegiance to China and take advantages of all the stuff in America when I want to. And that is how I want to define being Chinese American. And you're celebrating that, and somebody that's pissed off at your Chinese American, Korean American, or Asian American privilege throws insults at you because you celebrated and supported those values, that's fair game. Like to it's like, don't celebrate it if you don't agree with it. That's how I see it. All right. I should be thanking system is I don't know. You like American education are nothing but an indoctrination program. You didn't invite me, Ethan. Invite you where? I'm hurt. What? Ah, shoot. I don't know what you're talking about. What do you think of birthright citizenship? I don't know which countries have that per se, but I think that's a different topic. You automatically become a citizen by just being born there, regardless of your parents' immigration status. Oh, I see. Yeah, like in America. Most countries in North and South America practice that. Birthright citizenship? I mean, this is the thing. I don't want to talk about it in general because I think this is also case by case per country, It's relative. Everything is sort of relative, that's my philosophy. So, in America, for example, I think it's perfectly fair because nobody particularly ethnically owns America. We're a country of immigrants. So you're born there, your support system's there, then you could be American. I also, I wouldn't also cry foul either if they said, hey, you don't get the right to birthright citizenship because you don't necessarily have the American values. And, to some degrees, it's like, it is a security risk sometimes, right? I wouldn't cry foul either because other countries, there's plenty of other countries that don't practice birthright citizenship either. But currently, we as a nation have decided that is what we're going to define as fair. So birthright citizenship, it's fair. I mean, if people have an issue with it, change the law, and until that happens, I'm not going to question it. My personal view on it, I really don't have much of a personal view on it. I think it's very irrelevant whether, because there's so many people that get citizenship by not being born there, just by having money, doing an investment visa. I mean, I don't think people who have money have any more of a right to citizenship than somebody that's born there, per se. So when it comes to that, like, it's much broader. Then you have to just overhaul the whole immigration system, and it's like, I don't even know where I would even start with that. There's like it's so unfair in many aspects that the only fairness that can be derived is simply just following the laws that were established, and that's the point of fairness I could define right now. And I'm not a policymaker to really be in a situation to discuss this. I like to think of my social collectives as more local and values-based. If countries were people, they would be assholes. I wouldn't be friends with any of them. Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. That's a very interesting way to look at it. Yeah, really. I mean, but when I yeah, that's why I think I like when I define myself as an American. Maybe America's changed, but the America that I define, the people of America, are people that, regardless of, the color of my skin, my, like where I was born or whatever, accept me as their own when I pledge allegiance to them and loyalty to them, right? Fully, like with all privileges and without bias or racism. That's the America I know. Maybe America's changed where now most people are not going to accept that. I don't know. I haven't been back to America for a while, but in my mind, that's the America I know. And yeah, hopefully the majority of those people can keep like the couple of ignorance that can accept that at bay. But I also do think a lot of Americans are rightfully confused at how patriotic an Asian American can be when there's mixed messaging like this, where people are saying, Asian Americans are saying, hey, you know what? I can be Chinese when I want and American when I want. And if you don't say I'm fully American, you're a racist. That doesn't hold water for me, unless you're fully American all the time, whether it be 1% less, ideologically, factually, you're not as American as an, full American then. And you're part of the team, right? Like when you go to battle, you don't wanna, or yeah, like I don't like this sounds like war. I don't want to talk. Well, like let's say you're going to play basketball, you're playing 5-on-5, but there's one person that says, hey, you know what? When it's convenient, I can decide to switch to the other team. So if the other team starts winning, okay, I'm gonna be that team. Is it like racist to be a little concerned about that member? You know? Like, and of course there's different degrees. Like, yeah, killing that person would be uncalled for. Physically assaulting that person would be uncalled for. If you have an issue with it, you should just talk about it and tell them to leave or whatever. But does like like I don't know how that person would have the audacity to claim foul play if and expect people to treat him the same, you know? Like I just don't get that. That's it. I don't get it. You know, like correct me if I'm wrong. Um, and I respect other people now because I guess, you know, you could do this. I mean, you could completely legally do this, so they're not breaking the law. So if their value system is, it doesn't really matter. Loyalty doesn't matter, and we're all just in it for making the money and whatever profits us. And the ultimate decider of our value and how we should be valued is how successful we are, and the ultimate value of success is how much money we make. Then that's a value system I just don't go on with, but I can understand because that's, you know, that's capitalism. So woe to, you know, all the marketers and the corporations that have created this crap society. Have answered my question about Korean multiple citizenship rules. Oh, I didn't. My understanding is if you're a Korean male, like you're born here because of the military thing, you can only get dual citizenship when you're like 55 or something. So it is possible. I think the girls can have it, you know, at any age. And you know, I think foreigners can come and, like, if you're just not born in Korea, you're not ethnic Korean. So they discriminate against like Korean Americans like me. So, but you know what? I'm not crying foul because there's also privileges I have as a Korean American. I can just get that straight up F4 visa. Um, and I don't have to, you know, put in my 5 years to get that citizenship, or, you know, however many years it will take me to get that citizenship. So there's pros and cons to being a Korean American. You know, you have the military issue, but we have an easier visa. I guess the person that really has it the best off are Korean American women. Okay, so they are privileged. There's no give and take for them. They get all the benefits. So yeah, it is what it is. But well, you know what? There's give and take. Being a woman is not that easy in Korea, so yeah, they get a bit of a pass on that too, I guess. Anyways, I am gonna wrap up here. I have to wake up, guys, at 6. No, not 6. 5:30. I'm sorry, because I'm going skiing. But I just want to talk about this. Originally, I was going to try this new format where I shoot the vlog with the computer screen here on the side. I like cleaned everything up here. I can't really show you though. Can I show you? Yeah, I might not be able to show you. I even put up like little fairy lights. Oh man, do you see it? Oh, you can sort of see it. Look, I even decorated it with little fairy lights here. So hopefully I get my external monitor and the video connector and all that stuff to be able to do that. And I decided to do this kind of, I prepared a PowerPoint actually because I was on the fence if I wanted to actually make this a straight up vlog and put it on my main channel, because Johnny New York, he actually didn't pop in today, but he's been on all my premieres, has been telling me that he likes my sort of monologuing discussions. So let me know if you really like, I don't know, did you like this live stream better than the other ones? Let me know. I mean, I've been really focusing on visuals, but I think this year, I think I'll try to do more topics like this. This one is, I was on the fence about this one because it's obviously a controversial issue, but I don't mind sharing this and my thoughts with you guys on this channel. But you know, when it's less hot topic like China, then I'll go ahead and maybe do them on my other channel, and then like sort of do it like a format instead of like, before I thought, you know, at least I should walk around, but maybe I should just like, I was thinking, he said he actually liked it when it was just static and me talking with like a big screen on the side of me. I don't want to go like that far yet, like PowerPoint lecturing, but maybe I'll like do more stable shots, and instead of walking around, I'll just like place a tripod and show scenes of people walking by or something like this. And overlay that, and maybe it will help you focus more on the topic on hand. You're going to Japan soon. Oh, as a matter of fact, Maya told me that Japan sort of eased the restriction to 3 days quarantine. Only thing is you need a booster shot, and I've only gotten the second vaccine like less than a month ago. So I don't want to get a booster shot when I just got 2 shots and I finished it up less than a month ago. I don't know, Chris, what do you think? Are you still on here, by the way? I got Pfizer twice, and I'm thinking I want to get the Novavax for the next one. Or should I just keep sticking with the Pfizer? I mean, Pfizer seems pretty, like, like on best case scenario, it seems like 4 months the booster has effectiveness. It's just diminishing returns if I keep getting the same one. Yeah, so I should get Novavax, right? So I'm like sort of leaning towards Novavax, and I wish I got Novavax from the beginning. I just sort of trust the more traditional stuff, like this mRNA stuff. I don't know. I was just I've traveled Japan. Yeah. Chris said, yeah. You should get at least 8 shots. Yeah, so I really want to go to Japan, but you need the booster, and right now it's like you have to go there for reasons other than being a tourist. But it does show signs of easing up. And Japan just had a huge spike in cases too. Like Korea and Japan, we've had like huge spikes in cases. But I was pretty spot on when I said, hey, I don't think these huge spikes in cases this time is a cause for alarm as far as immigration policy. I think they're going to continue to run with it. And they are. Like Korea just had 100,000 the other day. And they're talking, they actually just eased the restrictions. So we can stay out until 10 p.m. So it's not really phasing them. The only thing they have an issue with is we've moved to, if you do get sick, you're defaulted to staying in your home unless you're over the age of 65. That's why they increased their capacity to treat people who had COVID. But even that capacity is reached its peak. So they may, I think that's the only like thing going against Korea just fully opening up. The vaccines were not that amazing. No single shot sterilizing immunity. Omicron in Ottawa was a 93% vaccination rate, did nothing. 18% ICU peak in the city of 1 million. It's over for it. What the heck? Crap. That sucks. Yeah, I mean, we all sort of knew this was going to happen, right? Like vaccine is but the good news is like it's there, like I don't know if there's any updates to this, but it shows like the data showed that COVID became endemic in Africa, country like well not continent where they had like the lowest vaccination rates. Sure, a ton of people are gonna die, but the light at the end of the tunnel is when you're exposed to all these different strains of the virus, you're gonna actually get pretty decent immunity. I think, you know, the data was very clear from the beginning with Israel showing that, you know, natural immunity is significantly better, lasts longer, and the data is showing that right now. So I guess we can only hope for those, hope that that method works. What can we do, you know? I honestly think that's what America's doing. Korea's doing. All these countries realize it. They don't want to go out there and message that you know, vaccine doesn't really help because, you know, there's a lot of politicians and people that have been trying to convince people that that was the way, and now to say, you know, it doesn't really help. Let's just screw it. Would piss a lot of people off. But all their policies, like here, are showing that that's the method they're taking. They're like in Korea, it's pretty amazing. Like, you know, there's still the like I think in Korea the quarantining is gonna be over pretty soon because my cousin just got COVID, and basically they changed it. So if you do get it, you're not going to a facility, you're staying at your home, and you're getting, you know, I talked about this, the doctor, they call you, and after 7 days, you don't even need a test. It doesn't matter. If you just say you feel better, you're free to go. So it's sort of ass backwards that you're coming from another country, you're getting a PCR test showing that you're negative, and you still got to quarantine for 7 days and take another test after that. When you're having people who are, you know, guaranteed virus, just, you know, stay home for 7 days and leave after that, regardless of a PCR test. So like somebody is eventually gonna notice the discrepancy here. But the only reason I think it hasn't really happened in Korea is because this policy hasn't negatively impacted the constituents of Korea. They're not complaining about it. The thing that they're complaining about right now is the restaurants staying open later, social gatherings, etc. So they're fighting that fight. And eventually the tourism sector, which is actually not that big of a sector in Korea, is going to have their say about how ridiculous the quarantine situation is. So yeah, no, that means the pandemic is over for us. Vaccines keep people from getting seriously ill. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely the light at the end of the tunnel for all this. Africa had the people who died like a lot and they got endemic. But with this, with the vaccines, the data does show that, you know, if you catch it when you're vaccinated, you have significantly less chance of dying. So it was just sort of like a easing into getting natural immunity and it becoming an endemic. So yeah. You don't have to wear a mask in lots parts of the US now. Okay. And then some crazy protesters get to the city. Yeah, I don't know what's happening with that. That's crazy. USA is losing 3,000 people a day now. Ooh. US got plenty of people to go around. The vaccines do keep pretty well everyone under 80 from dying. Yeah, I mean, I saw the statistics. It's like compared to someone in their 20s, someone in 65 is 65 times more likely to die. And the correlations were mainly in age. That was the biggest correlating factor. So I guess I have, well, I'm almost 40, so somewhere in between there. Maybe I'm 20 times more likely to die than a 20-year-old, but 20 times less likely to die, then I'll take those odds. I don't really see too many people dying, so and I'm vaccinated, so as a matter of fact, I sort of the strain is weak now, and some part of me sort of wants to get it now when it's guaranteed weak, because maybe the next strain could be even weaker, but it could get worse. I don't want to get the Delta strain or something even possibly worse. So I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but I heard like generally virus mutations, it's like you'll get like less harsh, infects a lot, and then like another virus will come that's just like it makes you sicker, infects, but it's not as contagious, and it keeps alternating like this. Or I mean, so far it's sort of gone like this, just more contagious but weaker. So I don't know if it'll just keep going on that route, but I don't know. Maybe it's just all luck of the draw or something. So, but right now it seems pretty reasonable. My sister got it, my cousin got it. They said it's just like it wasn't even like a flu for them. They just felt a bit of headache or something for like a day. It's it's random chance. There's no correlation. It's not up and down. Yeah, so that's why I'm like, maybe I should just get it now, because Omicron seems like pretty decent. My cousin got it, and he's recovered, but he said he's still coughing. So I was thinking, well, I'm gonna go stay with him next week. Like I don't want to stay like this week, because I don't want to catch it and spread it to everybody in the ski trip. But next week maybe. But if it's milder, it spreads faster. Yeah, that's what I generally hear. But anyways, thanks for hopping on, guys. Hope you enjoyed this talk. I will catch up with you some other time, and hope you like the new videos that I'm putting up. Let me know in the comments of the my real estate videos. You guys have been asking for it. It's my best performing video. Yeah, so far this year. Like the click-through rate, the average view duration, total views, watch time, all of it is like top matrix. So it seems like you really liked it. But the ironic thing is I didn't spend that much time on it. Like the most amount of time I spent on it was putting all those subtitles and extra information. Let me know if you appreciate that, because that takes a lot of time. And if you didn't really appreciate it, I could just get you more videos out, without it. So I don't know if that added a lot of value. Let me know if it adds enough value where you think it's warranted that I make, half as many vlogs for that information. Let me know in the comments. When's buying condo in Korea video? I don't know, man. When I have money, or I find somebody with money that wants to buy it, then I'll do it. Okay, bye guys.